Hey guys, welcome back, and today we are going to be looking at the grosses for this week, and overall most shows did very good this week, and a lot of new musicals are doing extremely well, minus two, so let's get into it. And Juliet did 100% last week and 98% this week, going from 1,329,607 to 1,259,279. A Beautiful Noise went from 60% to 55%, and 673K to 757K. Back to the Future did 101% last week and 96% this week, going from 1,432,139 to 1,355,068. So another amazing week for Back to the Future. Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club performed to 1,529,836 overall this week for 6 performances, selling out with an average ticket of $238. And that's a very impressive, huge start for Cabaret. I don't know how they're going to be able to sustain these numbers, and I know Eddie Redmayne is a stunt cast, so it'll be interesting to see how far these numbers dip once he leaves and we get into the fall. But most revivals tend to only last a year. But who knows? This is a very immersive experience, so people might like it. Hadelstown went from 101% to 99.51, and 1,117,322 to 986 this week. So while that is a significant drop, and it has been making $1 million for quite a while now, it's still fantastic numbers for Hadelstown, and it was clearly saved by stunt casting. But will that stunt casting hold? I don't know. But at least for this week, it's holding quite well. Hamilton made $2 million this week and last week, selling out. Hell's Kitchen performed to 1,013,083 compared to last week's 624K for 7 performances, and 98% compared to last week's 100%, which is an incredible start for Hell's Kitchen. This is exactly the kind of numbers you want to see from an original, not an original new musical, but a new musical. You know, this is kind of the standard we were at before COVID, so I'm glad that we are getting back to that standard, and it shows that the business is getting better, and that audiences are coming back, and while I think this has the Alicia Keys brand, and that's why people are going to it, I am glad it's succeeding. I don't want any show to close, I don't want any show to fail, but when I see something that's not doing good, I'm going to give my opinion. But definitely a great start. But will it hold? Or, you know, because it could be very front-loaded, and then the reviews come out, it doesn't get a Best Musical win, and I could see this definitely teetering off once we get into the fall months, but it's too early to tell. And it is selling quite well this upcoming week, so I think it'll make $1 million again next week as well. Kimberly Akimbo played to 90% last week and 83% this week, and 546K last week and 462K this week. Lempicka is sadly doing quite poorly, performing to 87 this week and 96% last week for 7 performances, and 416K to 357K, a significant drop. And again, it's definitely the worst performing new musical of the season, minus The Heart of Rock and Roll. And I think that this could be the Chafkin's first flop, you know, because people coming out aren't very positive about it. And I think that while it will get a Best Musical nom, I could see it's not going to win. So I think that this might close in the summer, June, July, August. Certainly I don't think it will be here this time next year, which is unfortunate, but, you know, when a show is doing this bad in previews, it tends to not improve dramatically enough for it to have a long, healthy years of running. But we'll see. Merrily performed to 100%, and 1,527,638 last week to this week's 1,261,919, which was a big drop, but that's because Daniel Radcliffe was out, but it still did solid numbers. Moulin Rouge went from 100.34 to 100.6, and 1,500,004 to this week's 1,428,271, so not that bad of a drop. 6 went from 100% to 98% this week, and $1,067,026 to this week's 1,019,087. Spamalot in its final week performed to 96% capacity last week and 88% this week, going from 1,122,786 to this week's 1,119,157. So a solid end for Spamalot. Softs performed to 7 performances and 96% compared to last week's 100%, and 460K last week to this week's 520K. So a pretty significant increase for Softs, and it definitely is, I guess you could say, one of the weaker performing new musicals of the season. But for a show like this, it's doing all right. It's doing okay. Obviously, they prefer a 6 or a 7, but it's getting there. If it doesn't improve and it kind of stays the way it is, that's when I'm going to get concerned. But it's off to a decent start. It's not a great start by any means. And most new musicals kind of want to have like 1 or 2 weeks of, 400, 500, and then the third week onwards, it's increases, and slight decreases, but not going into the minus $500,000 range, because that's not where investors want to be. Sweeney did 100% last week and 93% this week, going from 1,497,584 to 1,382,192. The Great Gatsby did 100% this week and last week for 7 performances, going from 433K to 1,122,972, which was a massive increase for The Great Gatsby and a huge home run. Though again, looking at advanced sales, it's not selling super well, and I still think it will not do well once it goes into like the later months, because again, yes, there's Eva, there's Jeremy, it's a very popular musical, but I don't think critics are going to like it, and I don't know if audiences are going to love it. And it just seems like another New York. Again, could I be wrong? Yes, I was, last week everyone criticized me because I was like, it's doing poorly, and I was like, it kind of didn't do great for 2 performances. I mean, I know it was only 2 performances, but like, you could have had a 6 or a 7, and yes, the average ticket price would have to be higher, but for something like The Great Gatsby, their ticket prices, to really succeed, need to be like 130 plus. Even 108 is quite low for The Great Gatsby, and is kind of concerning. So again, is Gatsby doing well at this current moment? Yes. And will it close and be a huge flop like Bad Cinderella? No. But do I think that means that it won't fail later on, or it won't kind of teeter off? I don't know. But I'm just saying, I'm putting that out in the ether for you guys to remember in 5 months when it's not doing so hot. The Heart of Rock and Roll did 74% this week and 90% last week for 7 performances, and 139K to this week's 270K, and I mean, at this point, just close it. The Notebook did 99% last week and 93% this week, going from 946K to 874K, which is only a $71,000 drop, and again, as long as The Notebook is having an 8 or a 9 in front of it, it's doing solid. It could even have a 7 in front of it, but it's still doing solid business, and is doing what a new musical should in terms of business. I also saw The Notebook, so that review is coming shortly. The Outsiders sold out this week and last week for 7 performances, going from 701K to 732K, and that is doing quite solid numbers. I think The Notebook and The Outsiders are going to be the 2 financial home runs that will be on Broadway for many years, because they are such popular novels, and audiences seem to really love both, although there's some audiences that aren't huge fans of them. But still, I think that these are 2 very successful shows at the current moment, and looking at advanced sales, The Outsiders is definitely selling great. The Notebook, not as much, but again, I think that the Notebook is so right for Broadway because it fits that mold of the white, middle-aged demographic women who come and see shows. So that's why I think it's going to succeed. It could fail. I could see it failing, The Notebook, but I think it's going to be okay. Mainly it's because I just didn't think it was that good, but spoilers for my video. The Who's Tommy did 98% last week and 87% this week, and 956K last week to this week's 1,003,258. The Wiz performed to 97% compared to last week's 100%. For 6 performances and 941K to 1,302,539, which is insane. It's a limited engagement, but this is, I guess, the future. You have Wayne Brady, you have a celebrity, it's a limited engagement, and maybe that's the formula for musical revivals in certain shows, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And The Wiz is a big smash hit, and its advanced sales look great, and I'm trying to film a video here, and there's a plane in my way. Water for Elephants did 95 last week, and 81% capacity this week, going from 1,149,418 to 1,026,327. which is still a great week for Water for Elephants, considering that they lost a good chunk of money doing previews, and despite it being a very polarizing show for people, it is doing quite well. Although I do think that, and my review of Water for Elephants will go into it further, where I still think Water for Elephants is not going to be a long-running hit. But still, I'm glad that most of the new musicals made $1 million, or were doing quite well. The only three is like Lempicka, The Heart of Rock and Roll, and I guess you could say Suffs. Yeah, so overall, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.